it down to the Daily Dodge TV studios with Terry Bell for today's community comment.
Thank you so much, Jake. We appreciate you setting up the show for us. And as soon as I get the camera working, you might be able to see us on the YouTube page. If not, that'll be just fine. Not a problem. But we can hear us on the radio just fine, I assume. This is Community Comment. I'm Terry Bell. Welcome. It's a Friday. And today we're pleased to welcome Nick Smith of the Beaver Dam Fire Department. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Terry. Thanks for having me back.
Great to have you here.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been cold recently, cold enough to get the ice stable on the lakes again for people who are recreating out on the ice. And so, first of all, how safe is it out there right now?
Well, you nailed it on the head, Terry. So it's been brutally cold, as everyone's well aware. However, especially Beaver Dam Lake, some of the local lakes, we urge, the common theme is no ice is safe ice, right? It's freezing out there. The ice is getting thick, but there's still a lot of soft areas and areas of concern.
Absolutely. Before we go any further, just want to remind everybody that you can join this conversation by calling or texting 920-887-9595, or you can call the WBEV studio line at 885-4446. Now, no ice is safe ice, as you say, but there are some guidelines to help you understand what your chances might be out there.
Sure. Like we kind of talked about, ice conditions is one of those things that's going to change daily, right? It's based off of weather, wind, precipitation, is there current underneath it? Obviously, rivers, people drive by, you can see rivers are still usually free flowing this time of year. Some of them might have a glaze of ice over them, but current is a big one. But kind of some rules of thumb, that we like to tell people, especially as they're going out, and some rules of thumb that the DNR have provided us. 4 inches of ice is probably the safest ice that we'll say you can go out on. For that's foot traffic only. That's more of your recreational ice fishermen that have the itch to get out there and get going.
So that's maybe you and your tackle box, but no vehicle.
Correct. Yep. When we start talking about vehicles, we talk about snowmobiles, ATVs. We're looking more of that 5 inches to 6 inch range. As far as ATVs, I'm not talking the big UTV 4-passenger ones. Those are getting heavier and heavier. So I'd be surprised if the DNR doesn't put something out to incorporate that in the future. But we're talking single-person snowmobiles, single-person ATVs. Still treading with caution, proceeding cautiously. The more ice we get, the deeper it gets. 8 to 12 inches, we start talking about small cars, compact cars. And anything above a foot is when...
And maybe those UTVs, too.
Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect example. And anything above a foot is when they say it's safer for trucks to go out. Personally, owning a truck, I don't know if I'd ever drive it on the lake. But to each your own, I guess.
I've seen pictures of big, beautiful, expensive trucks submerged in icy water.
I think the one thing I'll caution anyone on is if you're going to take your truck out, don't turn it into a parking lot. If you're going in a group, space it out properly. Don't park next to your buddy. Even if we have 12 inches of ice, if we put 2, half-ton pickup trucks in one spot, that's going to soften that pretty quickly.
That's a good point, for sure. What's the difference, say, between cloudy ice and clear ice?
Good. I'm glad you asked. So if you're on the ice and you're looking at the ice conditions, if you're seeing clear ice, that's going to be the safest, strongest ice.
Really?
Yep. That means it's freezing over without concern. Once you start seeing that cloudy white ice or that honeycomb look, it's either frozen or refrozen. There's some pockets in there. It's a little bit weaker. It looks stronger, but it's pretty deceiving. So the clearer the ice, the better the conditions are going to be for you.
Well, that's good to know. For those who may be inexperienced, how do you know where the safest areas to be? We hear officials like yourself say there are certain areas you should avoid, but what are those areas?
Sure. So we'll use Beaver Dam Lake as an example, obviously, because most of the listeners are local. Beaver Dam Lake is notorious. It's spring fed in certain areas. There's a couple aerators. I don't know if they're running this season, so I'm not going to speak to that. I know in the past years they've ran. I'm not sure if they are this year or not. However, what I would encourage anyone to do before you ice fish anywhere is to do your homework of the lake, learn where some of those springs are, learn where there's areas of man-made, water movement. On top of that, some of the things we look for to avoid is the first thing to freeze and first thing to freeze, first thing to thaw is a shoreline. Shorelines tend to be pretty weaker, especially if we have a bunch of precipitation or some warmer weather. We'll see those shorelines soften up quite a bit. Boat launches, duck launches, stuff like that. Springs and aerators we kind of talked about, but other inlets, bays, anywhere where water can move freely or it's designed for the water to move in a specific area, that stuff tends to freeze and be a little bit softer.
Okay. I've heard that snowmobile clubs and bait shops are some of your best sources of information.
Absolutely. I know Fox Lake, the bait shop over there, I think they do an ice report every day, which is great. Those guys know it better than even myself. They're out there, they're fishing every day, they're selling their product to the consumers. If you're not familiar with the area, I'd say give a local bait shop a call, ask for an ice condition report, or as you're going out yourself, drill a hole here or there and just make sure the ice is thick.
All right. So let's say worst case scenario, you do your best to be careful, but as you say, no ice is safe. You fall through.
Yep.
What do I do now?
The biggest thing, and it's going to sound kind of cheesy, is stay calm. I know that's going to be tough, and it's probably the anxiety and the fear is going to kick in, but it's cold outside. You're falling into cold, wet water. You want to try and stay calm so your body doesn't deplete all its resources right away. The calmer you can stay, the more preserved you're going to be. If you do fall through, some basic tips right away: turn back towards the way you fell in. So if we're walking, east to west, and you fall in moving west, turn back and face to the east, because that's solid ice, right? You just came from that way, you fell in. The next thing, I would encourage anyone who's an ice fisherman or any sort of recreational activity on the ice, get yourself an ice suit or some sort of gear that has picks in it. Those ice picks are incredibly handy. We have them in all of our rescue gear. They're very simple. You drive them into the ice with your hands, and it kind of anchors you as a point to pull up. Once you get yourself onto the ice shelf, we encourage you to get your arms up on the ice shelf first. If you can get some of that weight up there, we encourage you then to get your legs kind of in that swimming motion, when you're teaching someone to swim for the first time and you're doing the big kicks. Get your body up, get your legs up and kick, and as you're kicking, kind of pull yourself out of the hole. The best advice I can give is, obviously you fell through, so the ice was kind of soft there to begin with, right? Don't be discouraged. You might break the ice shelf a few times as you're trying to get up on top of it again, but once you are able to get yourself out, the first reaction is to stand and get away as quick as possible. Obviously, we're on some softer ice in this area. Once you get yourself out, the best thing you can do is get on your belly and roll away from the hole until you get to safer ice.
Not on your feet.
Nope. Obviously, we're Wisconsin men, so we're all a little bit bigger, right? The weight distribution is much better if you're on your belly. So if we're all that weight's not standing from 6 feet up straight down to your toes, it's kind of dispersed over a square footage area. So if you can get on your belly and roll away, it's gonna be a lot better for everyone.
Wow, that would have never occurred to me. That's good information to have, and it's really important because I would have to imagine. As soon as you get wet, you and hypothermia are in a race against the clock.
Absolutely. Hypothermia is going to be the first thing that sets in, right? You're going to start to shiver. You're going to have altered mental status. That's a big one. Confusion's going to set in. You're going to want to get out of there. You're going to be fighting. You're going to be in a struggle against the time to get yourself out. So it is pretty quick. Once you go in a hole, it's not a slow process of when hypothermia is going to set in. It's going to be a quicker process, and your body's going to start shunting back to the core to try and keep itself warm, at least your core organs. So biggest piece of advice I can give is, if you fall through, take a breath, stay calm, and don't fish alone. I know there's lots of people that like to go out alone. If you're going to go out alone, let somebody know where you're going, where you're going to set up. Everyone has cell phones these days. Maybe send a friend or a relative GPS coordinates of where your shack is set up, so that way in the event that someone goes through, we can know right where you were and get out there quicker instead of kind of chasing the tail to figure out where someone might be.
A lot of good advice. We need to take a quick break here, but we will be right back. You're listening to Community Comment on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge.
This
TV studios with Terry Bell for more of today's community comment.
Thank you so much, Jake. I'm here with Nick Smith of the Beaver Dam Fire Department. If you have a question or comment about staying safe, either on the ice or in your home, please give us a call or a text at 920-887-9595, or you can call the WBEV studio line at 885-4446. This is a time of year, a peak season for fires caused by different heating devices that people use, understandably. Space heaters and wood stoves, I guess, are probably two of the leading culprits.
Yeah, space heaters, wood stoves, overloaded power surges, overloaded electrical systems in the homes with people trying to run additional heating elements or heating options in their homes. Winter tends to be a busy time for most fire departments nationwide. I know we've had our share here in the last couple weeks of cold weather fires. If you look at the news, there's departments all around have had them. I think Waupun had a couple. Looking at Fond du Lac County, I know there's been a few over in the Brandon Fairwater area. Just this time of year, we see an uptick in business.
Certainly. So let's talk about some ways you can heat your home that won't bring the fire department coming.
Sure. I guess just before we even go that far, statistically, home heating fires this time of year are about 44,000 fires a year nationwide. That result in 480 approximate deaths, with over 1,300 injuries and over $1 billion in damages. So that just speaks to the volume of how much people are using to heat their houses, some of the knowledge that they might not know. And not saying all these fires are malicious. I don't think anyone has that intent when they have a fire in the winter. It's they're trying to keep their families warm. The biggest one we run into is space heaters. Space heaters themselves are about 1,700 fires a year and result in about 70 deaths and 160 plus injuries. Tool, but they're not the only way to heat a house, right? Use them incrementally, use them cautiously and sparingly. Space heaters are designed not to be plugged into extension cords. That's one of the big things we run into is, we need to heat a space inside of a house, but there's no outlets in that room, or we're going to try and thaw something out with it, or, we're going to put in the basement and we got to go across the stretch here, so we're going to use an extension cord. Space heaters themselves are designed to be plugged directly into an outlet. When you buy a space heater, most of the packaging and the models will say that directly on the box, but we tend to see that they get plugged into an extension cord or not into an outlet, and then that's when they overheat. Space heaters themselves, I don't want to scare anyone, are historically safe. Most of them have functions now built into them where if they get knocked down, there's automatic shutoffs in them. Most of them have heating elements that are built into them where if the temperature is getting too hot, it will also shut itself off. But as with any mechanical feature or any sort of tool or equipment out there, these things tend to fail from time to time. But we can take the right steps to plug them directly in the outlets, put them on hard surfaces. The big rule of thumb with any space heater is the 3-foot rule. Carpet itself. So yeah.
What is it about space heaters that makes them so incompatible with extension cords?
I think it's just the amount of energy that they require. Anything you have that is designed to heat something, whether that be an electric fireplace, a space heater, any sort of heating device is going to draw a lot of power, right? It needs the power to heat the element inside the equipment to generate the heat to fill the space. So when it's drawing that much power, most of the extension cords and power surges aren't up to the standard. They can't put out as much power. Draw more power through the cords and the power surges. It's not the space heater that's failing, it's the extension cord that's in the middle there. That's where we're seeing the failures.
Another tip is that don't leave a space heater running unattended. If it's running, you should be in the room with it, and if you leave the room, turn it off.
Absolutely. It's just like candles, right? We say if you're going to burn a candle in a safe spot, always in an attended room, blow it out before you leave. There's no difference with a space heater. It doesn't take much. Say you put a space heater in the bathroom and you knock a roll of toilet paper on the floor. Well, over time, that toilet paper is going to reach its combustible state and it's going to start a fire. Not only that, with as much power as they do draw, want to be in the room so you can keep an eye on it. You know, is the cord getting warm? Even if it's plugged into the wall, right? If the cord on the unit is getting warm, obviously it's drawing too much power. So again, not trying to scare anyone to deter them from using space heaters, but use them cautiously and monitor them.
Certainly. We're talking with Nick Smith of the Beaver Dam Fire Department about staying safe in the winter time and what the fire department can do when things do go wrong, and they do. But we need to take a quick break right here. We will be right back. You're listening to Community Comment on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge.
Dodge TV studios with Terry Bell for more of today's community comment.
Thank you so much, Jake, and thanks everybody for sticking with us. And hey, thank you for watching the YouTube live stream. We seem to have gotten it to function properly again, so we appreciate everybody's patience with us. We're talking with Nick Smith of the Beaver Dam Fire Department about staying safe. If you have a question or a comment for Nick, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text 920-887-9595, or you can call the WBEV studio line at 885-4446. We were talking earlier, Nick, about how you shouldn't plug space heaters into extension cord. But also, extension cords are something you need to treat with a lot of respect, no matter what you plug it into.
Correct. So I know we talked about, space heaters plugged into the extension cord. It's not the space heater that's failing usually. What we're seeing the issues with are the extension cords. And part of the problem that you run into with extension cords is they're gaudy, right? No one wants to lay an extension cord across their room. They want to hide it under rugs or behind furniture. Although that probably helps the aesthetics of your home, it's just masking the potential failure, right? If we put an extension cord under a rug, that rug's going to provide a thermal layer over the top of the extension cord, so we may have some ongoing problems that we're not going to notice right away. Same thing goes for behind furniture. The point of an extension cord is a temporary fix, whether you're working on a project or a temporary means of plugging something in until you get something up and running, whatever it may be. Far too often we see extension cords as permanent electrical fixtures in a home, just not enough outlet space, so people are buying more and more electronics. Everything nowadays tends to run off of, a charger for this, a charger for that. Use extension cords sparingly. They're not designed to be permanent power fixtures. They're not designed to be under rugs or tucked in behind furniture. Extension cords tend to be a leading cause of fires around this time of year.
Certainly. Speaking of this time of year, it's, as we mentioned earlier in the show, the busiest time of year for firefighters. And I have to think that that's got to be incredibly challenging. One, I'm sure you know that early on when you sign up to be a firefighter that you're going to be pretty busy in the wintertime. But my goodness, we had a pretty brutal cold snap for a couple of days last week, and a few fires happened. What is that like? I mean, I imagine it's a challenge to fight a fire even in perfect weather conditions. What is it like when you're up against life-threatening cold, too?
It changes the ballgame a little bit, right? Not only are we still providing the service that we are known to provide to the city of Beaver Dam and surrounding areas, but it takes a toll on all the members. Cold conditions, hypothermia sets in, you're battling the freezing cold temperatures, all your skin's cold, the equipment's freezing up. The biggest thing for us that we run into is more of an equipment issue. Obviously, if it's below 32 degrees, water freezes. There's no secret element to the tanks on the trucks to keep the water cool or from freezing. So biggest thing for us is making sure we have water moving at all times, whether we're pumping water through a hose line or if a truck is stagnant, that the water's moving through it so we're not freezing up tanks and pumps. Not only can that delay our response and our service that we're putting out, it's also very costly to repair. Hydrants, we see hydrants that have frozen caps on them. Residents themselves, slippery driveways, slippery sidewalks. People move their snow in the most advantageous spots for them, but sometimes that's right up against an egress point to a house. It's just a challenging time of year. Everyone has to come to work ready to do their jobs and perform at a higher level, truthfully, throughout this time of year.
Certainly. I have to imagine that the gear you wear is waterproof and it protects you as best it can.
It is. It's kind of funny. There's some pictures floating around the internet of people throughout the years of the fire department. You turn into a big popsicle, for lack of better terms. The stuff is, it's not, it's insulated to keep you safe in a fire. It's not a winter coat. It's not winter gear. The waterproof is nice, but the outer shell tends to freeze fairly quickly. Gloves tend to freeze fairly quickly. So it's a challenge.
Right, right. Is there anything you can do in terms of like, inner layers to help with that? Or is it just a matter of psyching yourself up mentally? I know that there were football players in the NFL playoffs putting cayenne pepper in their socks. I mean, are there any tricks to the trade?
It depends who you talk to. I know. So we're working today, and I think between the 7 of us that are there, I think we all have multiple layers on today. When it got brutally cold, it's just wear as many long sleeve shirts as you can, stay out of the cold for as long as you can, and if you have to go to work, you just have to go to work.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. An interesting thing, I believe you said that heating sources, people attempting to heat their homes, causes the most fires. But of the fires that we had in Beaver Dam last week, most of them were not caused by that.
No, they weren't. So the couple that we had were more kitchen fires. The one was a room and contents fire on Jefferson. I wasn't working that day, so I don't know all the details on that one. The one last Saturday on Lincoln Avenue, that was a kitchen fire. So thankfully, knock on wood, our department hasn't seen any calls related to, heating usage. I think we had possibly one back in November-ish. Could have been a whole host of things, but we haven't seen that telltale, wood burner, fireplace, multiple power, or I can't think of the word right now.
Okay.
Multiple space heaters.
There we go.
But yeah, we've been pretty fortunate, and hopefully what we're telling the community, they're taking our advice and running with it.
So when you are fighting kitchen fires, I imagine they present unique challenges.
I think it's hit and miss, right? It depends, where did it start in the kitchen? Was it a cooking fire? Is it a grease fire? What is all in the kitchen? Any fire itself is going to be a challenge. Kitchen fires tend to be a little more, they grow a little faster because there's all the products in there, right? We have kitchen cabinets, we have potential grease on the stove. Everyone comes home from work and they put their stuff on the counter. My family's guilty of it. Come home and the mail goes right on the counter, right? So kitchens tend to be a space where I think things get stored. Anything on the countertop tends to light off pretty quickly. The good thing about kitchens, though, is from our line of work, most kitchens are pretty accessible. It's right on the main level, usually right inside the door somewhere. So there's really no, I don't want to say a kitchen fire is worse than a living room fire, because it just depends on what's burning and what the lay of the land looks like.
Right, right. I'm just, from learning over life, and I think we all are familiar with this rule, but if you have a grease fire, you shouldn't try to put it out with water.
Correct.
Are there any other tips you would have for people who are maybe dealing with a kitchen fire that may be within their ability to put out?
Sure. The big one is stove fires, right? If you have a fire in the stove, whether something spills over onto the burners below, keep the door shut. Keep the door shut, turn the oven off. Usually without the, for fire, you need oxygen, right? So if we shut the door to a stove, we're taking away one element that's needed for fire to grow. Shut the stove off, turn it off, unplug it if you can. If you have a grease fire, don't put water on it. That's the biggest thing we can stress. Try and have a fire extinguisher in the home, right? You go to Menards, you can buy one of those kitty dry chem fire extinguishers for $10. That's a great tool to have in a kitchen. Otherwise, baking soda on a grease fire. If you don't know if it's getting too out of hand, best thing you can do is call the fire department early.
One thing I've been hearing a lot this winter is that you shouldn't try to heat your home with your oven. Open up the door, crank up the heat. That's a bad idea. Why? Why is that?
It's an old wise tale. I think people, back in the day, that's the way that people heated their houses, right? But products have changed. Now we're worried about gas stoves, especially a gas stove. If you have the door open, now you're introducing CO into the house, right? CO is a silent killer, and unless you have up-to-date alarms or alarms that are strategically placed throughout the house, CO can sneak in without the blink of an eye and can take you out. If you're using your oven to heat your home, I would encourage you to seek an HVAC guy or some sort of heating and cooling person. It's just, I'm sure it's more costly too. You have to run your oven and get up to temp just to heat that space.
Right, because it's not designed to heat a whole room
Correct.
or a whole floor of your house. For sure. Well, we are going to take another quick break right here, but we'll be right back. You're listening to Community Comment on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge.
For
Powered by Daily Dodge, presented by Professional Floor Covering.
community comment, but still plenty of time to call in as we send it down to the Daily Dodge TV studios with Terry Bell.
Right, you are, Jake. If you would like to join the program and give our guest, Nick Smith, a question or a comment, you can call us or text us at 920-887-9595, or you can call the WBEV studio line at 885-4446. You know, we've been talking about fires a lot, but another thing we have to be careful about this time of year is carbon monoxide.
Absolutely. Carbon monoxide calls in the winter tend to go up. Everyone in their home should have combination, smoke alarms on every level, carbon monoxides on every level, particularly kitchen spaces. If you have gas fireplaces in your living room, basements where all your heating and cooling elements are, carbon monoxide's a silent killer. It's odorless, it's invisible, and it's just one of those things that sneaks in, whether it be from a leak or for misuse of a equipment or product that you're using in your home. It doesn't take much to sink in.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe this is anecdotal, so I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I remember just kind of lounging around with the family in a small room with a wood fireplace going. But I remember at a certain point feeling sleepier than I have ever remembered feeling. And I wondered at some point later if I wasn't experiencing some kind of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Very well could have. Even wood burning fireplaces, obviously, if we have a product of combustion, we're producing a gas and off gassing the wood, even if it's clean wood, does produce some sort of byproduct that is going to go out through the chimney. That's a big thing. If you have chimneys, even wood burning fireplaces, if we're not cleaning chimneys properly, if the flues aren't clean, we aren't checking the grates and getting that creosote out of there, that's a perfect place for carbon monoxide to build up and come back into the residence. I'm glad you touched on it. You said headache and kind of sleepy.
Very sleepy. Like I could not imagine why I felt so tired, but I did.
Sure. So some of the early symptoms from carbon monoxide poisoning, the sad thing is, or the hard part is, the symptoms mirror a lot of other things, right? You're going to feel nauseous, possibly have a headache. You'll start to have some confusion and dizziness will set in along the way. So that could be a whole host of medical events that you have going on. That's why having a detector, I can't stress it enough. I'm guilty of, I probably don't have as many as I should in my home, but CO detectors, along with smoke detectors, save countless lives many lives throughout the years.
Here's another thing that could save lives, and that's making sure, you call the fire department, they come in time, but there are things you can do to make your job a lot easier once you get to a home.
Absolutely. I know in the last segment we talked about, cold weather fires and the implications it has on our job. City fire hydrants, they are city property, but if they're on your property, the expectation is that the homeowner clears them. This time of year, it's imperative that if you have a fire hydrant on your property, please shovel it out. If we show up and your house is on fire and we can't connect to a hydrant because it's buried or we don't know where it is, that's time that we don't have. We've spoke before, fires nowadays grow faster, they burn hotter than they ever have before. The products that people have in their homes, and this desk here, it's all plastic byproduct. The amount of time that it takes for the temperature to ignite and to burn off is very, very quick. So the longer that it takes us to get a water supply established, the more it hampers our job. So we ask and encourage anyone that has a fire hydrant on their property, take a shovel to it. I know it's extra work. I know it's tedious work. It's not fun when it's cold. But if you can give us 3 feet on either side of it so we can get those caps off and get the hoses hooked up without kinking, that's going to be really big down the road for any of us.
Keeping your sidewalks and your driveway clear is also a big help to firefighters when they come to a call.
Yeah, if when we get a big snowfall, if your driveway's clear and the sidewalk's clear and there's salt down, obviously any amount of snow is going to cause friction, and we have to drag hose and tools through, however many inches or feet of snow. It's going to delay the process, and we're kind of in a race against time when there's a fire. The quicker we can get in and get water on the fire, the situation becomes better for everyone involved.
Certainly. So, yeah, it's a very important time of year to stay safe and be considerate of those who are coming to help us when things do go wrong. I was wondering if there was anything else, Nick, that you wanted to talk about. I know that you're very involved with the firefighter union's charitable work.
Yeah, so our union charitable group started back, I don't even know the exact date. I want to say like 2013. And we've done some really good things over the course of the years. I don't know how familiar you are, if you remember the 109 Knopf Drive incident where we burned the building down. We did a fundraiser for the people that lived in that building. I think we raised over $20,000 at that event. But the charitable group that we have is pretty unique. So our organization, we do fundraising throughout the year, and then all the money that gets brought into that account, we've given back in the community. It all stays in the Beaver Dam area. We give back to Beaver Dam families, and it's a resource for those that may be going through a difficult time, or there's things in the community that we're trying to develop for the next generation. This year, or last year, I should say now, we donated to the Beaver Dam Ride Project to help them revamp their skate park. Really proud of the one we did with the school district. We partnered with a company in Pennsylvania called Operation Warm, and we were able to buy coats for 20 students in the district that didn't have access to winter coats. We got some stuff in the pipeline for this year. We have some fundraising ideas. and then some cool projects that we're going to try and hopefully get involved with moving forward and get back in the city.
Might be a little too early to ask you exactly what, but it seems like a lot of these fundraisers that the firefighters, unions, and departments put on are a lot of fun, to be honest.
They are. They tend to be a really good time. I know historically we've done a lot of golf outings. Not ruling that one out, but we have some ideas in the pipeline. We're going to try and partner with local partners and have events at their facilities and get some money coming back into our accounts so that way we can give back to the community. Talking about winter fire safety, there's been times if your family suffers a fire and you don't have means, we're open to helping anyone and everyone we can. I know we've done some donations to fire victims in the past. It's a really cool organization. We're really big with muscular dystrophy. Fill the Boot will be coming up in June, and all that money goes back to kids with muscular dystrophy. And it's just a unique charitable organization that is focused on local families and keeping local families happy and healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what if somebody wants to, maybe they're, not involved with the fire department, but they want to be helpful? Could people, chip in and volunteer somehow?
The best way you can be helpful, volunteer time. One thing about the fire service is I think most of the people that work in the department live in the city, so having volunteers isn't a hard part. Usually people want to show up and help out with stuff like that. But if you want to give back or you want to do something, whether it be with our organization or not, any monetary donation, the food pantry is a big one. We had our food drive in December, which went very, very well. But if you can find a local group to give back to, that's the best place to start. It doesn't have to be with our group. It doesn't have to be fire department related. If you have a giving heart and want to do something, I would encourage you to find something local that suits your passion and follow that.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to like coat drives and food drives, what I've been told is that cash is more helpful than actual physical donations, because with cash you can get exactly what's needed, where with other kinds of donations you might be left with a lot of things you don't need and not enough of what you do need.
Yeah, so our food drive in December was very successful. We did close to $5,000 in cash, and we did really well on food, surprisingly, which is better than most years. But when we dropped it off at the food pantry, cash, everyone says cash is king, but in those instances it truly is, because we could drop off 100 boxes of stuffing, but they might have 100 boxes of stuffing on the shelf. Whereas if we drop off $100, they can go buy what they need to meet the needs of that.
And often get deals, though. The charitable groups like yours can stretch a buck a lot further than a person like myself.
Yep, and just a quick plug for the food pantry. In December, they were feeding over 1,000 people a month. So that's 1,000 mouths in Beaver Dam that are now being fed off of donations. And it's just a great organization that really could use some help.
Okay. So much that we had covered. The time has flown right by. Nick Smith of the Beaver Dam Fire Department, I want to thank you so much for coming with us today.
Thanks for having me again.
And thank you for listening to Community Comment on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge.